Hello everybody and welcome to Journal Auto YouTube channel. I just came back from a long road trip in Central Europe. I went through Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, but most of the time I spent it in Poland, which is a beautiful country that I like a lot. And now I'm home and I was unpacking the car. And while unpacking the car, I thought that it would be a good idea to show you how I prepared for this trip, for example, different situations that you would not expect. I'm not saying that I know everything and all what I prepared are the best things and so on. That's why if you think that I should have added something, or maybe there are things that I took with me that were, let's say, unnecessary, I invite you to comment in the comment sections and also let me know how you prepare your car for vacations in the country, or especially when you go to foreign countries. So I will now open the trunk, meaning what I have here under the parcel shelf, and I will show you how I prepared for this long road trip that was about 3,700 kilometers. For those of you in UK, I will put the conversion on the screen. This distance was covered in around 7 days. So let's go and see. The most important thing I considered that it's good to have in my car was a spare wheel. Normally my car does not come with a spare wheel, but happily, in fact there are two happy things. Happily, number one, the number one happy thing is that despite not having a spare wheel, I do have the area here in the car where you can add a spare wheel. And also happy thing number two is that I have separated winter wheels, a set of 4 separated winter wheels. So I took one of the winter wheels and added here in the trunk in order to use it as a spare wheel. Now, we all know that winter wheels usually have a rotation arrow that shows you where to mount it in the car. So you cannot mount, for example, this wheel, the rotation is on the right. That means that this wheel must be on the right. If, for example, I needed to add it on the left, normally it would have been a problem. But let's say in an emergency situation where I need to use the spare wheel, at least, let's say for several, not hundreds, but let's say, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 kilometers until you reach to a car repair shop, I don't think it's a problem if you use it in the other rotation way, because it's still better than to be stranded at the edge of the road. Now, for those of you that not only don't have a spare wheel in your car, but also don't have a place in your car where to put the spare wheel, the option would be to place it in the main trunk, or to pay for a travel insurance that also covers towing your car in case of emergency. It is better to be prepared and pay for a travel insurance that covers towing your car than, I don't know, having an emergency and need to call in another country a company to tow your car, because that will be much more expensive. Another thing that I would like to mention is that, as you can see, I have a tow bar attached to my car. I usually use it in my home country, Romania, more likely as a safety measure, because many drivers are quite reckless. We are allowed by law to keep our tow bars mounted on the car without, carrying a trailer. But in other countries, for example, like Austria, you can be fined if you have a tow bar mounted on your car without carrying a trailer. In the countries I went to, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, I didn't find information if this is legal or not, so I removed it and put it here in this dedicated bag. And once I came back in Romania, I immediately mounted back. But in Poland, for example, I saw a lot of cars with tow bars mounted without carrying a trailer, so I guess it's quite legal in Poland. Of course, if I have a spare wheel, you also need to have a jack. My car also, because it has only a car repair kit, doesn't have a jack, but happily I have several jacks at home, and I took this jack from my older car that also has a spare wheel from the factory and a car jack. Another important thing is to have the first aid kit. Of course, this is mandatory. I went to Poland and I had this from before, but happily it is written here in Polish, zestaw pierwszej pomocy. I also had some cables to start the car in case of the battery dies. Happily this was not the case. And another thing that I had with me were some light bulbs for the tail lights. These are for the tail lights, and also I had here some, let's see, the light bulbs for the headlight, especially if it's a normal head bulb, halogen H7. Another thing that I added here was a towing rope in case this was needed. Of course, you have the fire extinguisher, but this is also mandatory to have it all the time in your car. And another thing that I took with me were 2 screwdrivers. I didn't took any keys. I had it at home, but I had no place where to add them, and I thought that the most important thing in a trip like this is to have the spare wheel, because in case, for example, something at the engine fails, it's useless to have any keys in nowadays cars, because usually you can't repair them on place like it used to be in the 60s or 70s. I remember the old Dacias could be repaired by anyone with small mechanical information by just using a screwdriver and some wiring and so on. Another thing that I would like to mention is that, of course, if you go through other countries, you need to pay the road taxes, the vignettes. Usually you can buy them once you enter the countries, but remember that some countries can fine you if you don't buy the vignette in a certain amount of time. There are countries that will fine you if you will not pay the vignette within an hour once you enter that country. I like to prevent any potential problems, and I bought all the vignettes. I knew all the countries that I went through, that I was going to go through. So I bought the vignettes online 2 days before, and I also printed them. This is not mandatory. As long as you have the proof on your phone or an email, I think that it's enough. But you know, sometimes I can be a little bit more paranoid, and I thought that it would be more useful to have them printed here. In Poland, you don't need to pay for road taxes. There are some highways where you pay a fee at the toll gates, but for Hungary, example, for Slovakia, for Czech Republic, and almost any other country in Europe, you need to pay these vignettes, these road taxes. And of course, you need to have washer fluid in the summer, because there will be a lot of bugs that will die on your windscreen. And also, if you go for a trip in the winter, of course there will be a lot of dirt on your windscreen, and more than that, you need a lot of washer fluid. So this is how I prepared for my long trip. Not much, but I thought that these are the main things that can save me from an emergency situation. When I came back to Romania, I even saw a Polish registered car, so a car registered in Poland, that was being carried by a truck, also registered in Poland. It looked like the car was not involved in an accident, so most probably it broke. So they had to call someone from Poland to take the car back to the country, and I can imagine that the costs were not small. That's why I think it's better to have travel insurance that will cover towing your car. So as I said, the most important thing for me was to have the spare wheel. Any other thing can be solved because we have Google Maps. You can find car repair shops in those countries. We have Google Translate in case people are not knowing your language. You can use Google Translate to the mechanic. They will solve your issues. This is how I prepared for this long trip. Now I invite you in the comment section to tell me if I should have taken anything else, or maybe if what I took with me was too much and too exaggerated. And also I invite you to tell me how you prepare when you go to longer road trips with your car in your country, or even more than that, outside of your country. So this being said, goodbye everyone, and see you in the next video.